Hey, friend, and welcome to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast, the first and longest running Tudor history podcast, turning 15 stinking years old this year, the quinceanera of the podcast. Today we are talking about when the calendar changed and everybody got confused because they didn't know what year it was. And you know how you get really confused during daylight savings time when you switch, or like this year is a leap year, I think, and like that's going to confuse us. Well, imagine losing 10 days and like a whole year. So, we're going to talk about that because that happened in the 16th century and people were very confused. So, today we are going to be talking about the monumental shift from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, which happened in 1582. It was a change that literally redefined dates and years and how we perceive time. So, I'm actually really interested in this concept of keeping time, and I've done a podcast episode on clocks and how our perception of time changes once we put a name on it. You know, there was this whole distinction before there were hours, and before there was, I'll meet you at 10 o'clock, and 10 o'clock is exactly 10 o'clock, and you hop on your Zoom call at 10 o'clock. When people would meet at dawn or people would meet in the evening, and things were much more like fluid. Um, Also, interestingly, they used to divide up days and nights 12 hours evenly. So day was 12 hours and night was 12 hours. Okay, that's great. Except like in the height of summer in England, when the sun rises at what, like 4 and sets at like 11, there's only like 5, 6 hours of nighttime. That was divided into 12 hours. And then the daytime, 18 hours of daytime was divided into 12 hours. So hours were really super long during the day and really super short at night. And then, of course, the inverse would happen in the winter. I'm fascinated by this. I've always been fascinated by this. I nerd out looking at the daylight map before, like now all your devices, like my iPad and stuff comes with daylight maps, like in the clock and it shows you where it's light. Before that was like a regular thing. I found daylightmap.com like back in like 2005 or something. And I just used to nerd out on that all the time. And I especially loved looking at it like on the equinox when it was just a straight line because everything was equal. Anyway, I'm very interested in this because it's also another way of thinking about how technology changes our brain. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, you guys, but bear with me because we will come out the other side, I promise. But I read a lot because I'm a mom and I'm interested in how social media, especially and technology and the internet is literally changing our brain, changing our concentration span, changing uh, how we perceive things to be important or not important, just changing the way we interact with information. And so you might think that this is the first time that we're living through these massive technological changes, but we actually have lived through it before as a species. And that, well, I mean, I'm sure there have been many times, right? Fire was an invention that changed how we interact with the world around us and our brains, but also clocks, because until you have a defined way of being able to tell time, and until you know that your 10 o'clock in the morning is everybody else's 10 o'clock in the morning, at least in your time zone, right? Until you get time zones, like all of that, it changes the way you think about time. It changes the way you think about productivity. It changes the way your brain thinks about even your work being paid by the hour as opposed to just going out and working in the field until it gets dark. Anyway, so I'm very interested in this whole kind of change in timekeeping and what that did to our brains. That is my nerd out. I will put a link to my episode on clocks in the notes if you want to also nerd out on that with me. We can nerd out on it together. I'm always down for a discussion on this. Like, I wish I had more people in my life that I could discuss clocks and timekeeping and the changes it makes your brain with. There's not a lot of people who want to talk about that with me. If you would like to, I would like to talk about that with you. Yes, I have had a lot of coffee this morning. Boom, it's a Monday. Let's get into it. So, the Julian calendar was named after Julius Caesar, was the standard in Europe for over 1600 years. It was introduced in 45 BC. It was a significant improvement over its Roman predecessor, which only had like 10 months, right? And that's why the months are all weird at the end. Um, December is the 12th month, but December comes from the Spanish diez, right? Which is 10, right? November, nove, 9. Um, October, oche, ochenta, 8. It's all off. October is the 10th month, but it comes from the word because it only had those 10 months. And so that also is another thing we can nerd out on. Let's leave that for now because this is not a Roman history channel. And I'm not an expert in that. And someone will probably tell me in the comments that I did it all wrong just now. And that's fine. You can feel free to do that. So we will leave that for someone else to do. And we will talk about what has happened now when we have come to the 16th century. Its year was slightly longer than the actual solar year. And this discrepancy caused a lot of issues, particularly for religious festivals, particularly for Easter. Easter, of course, is determined by the vernal equinox. And so it began to drift away from its intended time, which was in spring and rebirth and all of that. Um, you would actually have Easter celebrations that were in winter, which led to a lot of confusion among those who were faithful and celebrating Easter in the snow. So, in the early 16th century, Pope Leo X recognized that there was a need for reform. He called upon all of the European rulers to send astronomers to Rome to devise a solution. However, the response was a little bit, eh. Even Henry VIII, who was still in the Pope's good graces at this time, didn't prioritize this celestial conundrum. The urgency of calendar reform was lost in the labyrinth of the political and religious upheaval that was sweeping across Europe throughout the 16th century. So, fast forward to the end of the 16th century, and we have Pope Gregory XIII. He had a personal quest for calendar correction. And this quest kind of gained momentum and interest. So the Pope commissioned a group of scientists, including the Italian Luigi Lilio and the Jesuit mathematician Christopher Clavius, to develop a new, more accurate calendar. And their solution was both elegant and practical. They addressed the solar year's miscalculation because it's actually 365 and a quarter days that it takes the sun to go around the earth. I'm heliocentric. The Earth to go around the sun. So that's why we have a leap year every 4 years to make up for that fact that we get a quarter day. So that's where the leap year comes from. Anyway, that was the kind of the solution that they came up with. And in 1582, the Gregorian calendar went into effect. It was a bold leap for timekeeping because they decided to make up for all of the errors that had happened up until that point, that they would eliminate 10 days from the calendar. So in March and November, we lose an hour and our circadian rhythms are all messed up for like a week after that. They lost 10 days. So this was a dramatic adjustment that was necessary um, for astronomical precision. But it was met with a mix of wonder and confusion and skepticism across Europe. Can you imagine trying to pass that today? Trying to tell people like, okay, you're going to lose 10 days out of your year. So some people even made fun of it. There was cartoons about it. Imagine waking up. They lost 10 days in October. So they went to bed on the 4th and they woke up on the 15th of October. Imagine just losing 10 days like that of your life and finding 10 days had just vanished overnight. It was a surreal experience that sparked a range of reactions. In some regions, people feared the loss of their lives, not just in days, because superstitions and misunderstandings abounded. There's a tale of a group in Italy who, upon hearing of the calendar change, feared their lives would be shortened by 10 days and started protesting about that. Also, humorous anecdotes, also humorous anecdotes. In one village, a man joked that he had enjoyed the shortest engagement in history, having proposed to his beloved on the 4th and married her the very next day on October 15th. Such stories highlight the blend of confusion and adaptation as people navigated this temporal shift. But hey, I want to interrupt this fascinating story on timekeeping to tell you about this beautiful journal that is perfect for Valentine's Day to give yourself or anyone else that you love. It's this gorgeous medieval heart-shaped Valentine that it's 16th century Italian, this Valentine, and it's a journal, and I made it, and you can get it at my shop. It's narrow ruled pages, and the thing is, it's got quotes in that are love quotes, lots of Shakespeare, but also quotes from Henry VIII to Anne Boleyn in that cache of 1527 love letters that Henry wrote to Anne. It's got all these quotes in it from Henry to Anne and Shakespeare, and it's just a really pretty journal to write your thoughts in. You can get it at my shop. And if you want it for Valentine's Day, you should order it soonish because it is all print on demand and it does take a little bit of time to print. So the Henry VIII Anne Boleyn Love Letter Journal, you can get it at my shop. Tutorfair.com. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar was anything but uniform, leading to a lot of confusion throughout Europe. Catholic countries like Spain and Portugal and Italy were quick to adopt the new calendar, while Protestant and Orthodox regions initially resisted, viewing it as a papal imposition. Not going to have that Pope tell me what to do. Mm. And so this actually led to a myriad of complications, especially in international affairs. I know, like, because Europe changes clocks at a different time, I think it's a week earlier than the US. Well, it's a week earlier in the spring and a week later in the autumn. There's like a week there where I'm confused about what time it is to call my friends in England or in Spain where I used to live. And it's like they're 6 hours and 7 hours ahead of me, whereas before they're 5 and 6. It's all very confusing. So, for example, when France, which had adopted the Gregorian calendar, corresponded with England, which was still using the Julian calendar, the 10-day discrepancy caused significant confusion. An English merchant receiving a letter dated October 15th from France might have still been thinking of, living in October 5th, leading to missed deadlines and bewildering exchanges. Travelers crossing borders between countries using different calendars experienced a peculiar form of time travel, stepping backward or forward in time as they moved across Europe. It's like when I went to New Zealand and came back before I left because you cross the date line. So you lose a day going, and then when you come back, you gain. So I left at Saturday on Saturday at like 4 o'clock, and I got back at Saturday at 2 o'clock. It's really weird. So imagine doing that for 10 days. That would be really, really bewildering. The journey toward the universally accepted Gregorian calendar was slow and staggered. The German states and the Netherlands eventually shifted in the 17th century, recognizing the practical benefits of a standardized calendar throughout Europe. Great Britain actually managed to hold out until 1752, a decision influenced more by international trade and politics than by any religious resistance. When it finally adopted the Gregorian calendar in 1752, it marked a significant step in the global standardization of time. The British Empire at that point was expanding too, right? 1752 going into the 19th century. And that allowed further spread of the Gregorian calendar as Britain kind of moved into these other territories and their influence extended beyond the Americas into Africa and Asia. So that by the 19th and 20th century, the Gregorian calendar had become the global standard, um, which we still use today. It's a testament to the interconnectedness of science, politics, and daily life shaping our understanding of time. The switch from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar was more than just a technical adjustment. Like I said, it profoundly influenced people's perceptions of time and its place in their daily lives. Before, people didn't necessarily know what day they were born on. A lot of times there would be cases where wills had to be read and people didn't know what their birthday was. And sometimes they'd have to talk to a midwife to find out if she could remember. They knew like seasons, they didn't know what year. Time really meant something different to people in the medieval period and the pre-modern period than it means to us today. Today, I measure my life in hours, in minutes. I've got my planner right here, right? Where I write all my stuff to do and it's on calendars, it's by the hour. And, it means something very different to us than it would have meant to a merchant or a farmer in medieval England. So this change really symbolized the broader transition from the medieval period to the modern era. And the medieval period, time was fluid. The rhythms of agriculture, of the church, are what kind of ruled people's perceptions of time. The calendar brought this new precision to timekeeping, aligning it more closely with the celestial movements of the seasons. This shift also mirrored the broader Renaissance embrace of science and exploration and a more global perspective. For common people, the new calendar was a tangible manifestation of the changing times, an era where science began to challenge tradition and authority. And it was a step towards a period in which time and even then, by extension, life itself could be predicted and could be controlled really with greater accuracy. So I invite you to share any anecdotes, any thoughts you might have about losing 10 days. What would that be like? Can you even imagine? Weird, right? If you've made it to the end of this video and you're still here, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out videos like this on the regular. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I am so glad that I share the planet with you, and I will be back again very soon. Have an awesome day.